Colorado facing some early season adversity, falling here at Nebraska 28-10. A first half that was as ugly as we've seen with Colorado football since Coach Prime got to Boulder, kind of similar to that Oregon game last year. But there was some fight. There were some things to take away, but still a lot of the same issues this football team has had now for 14 games now.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing to take away, and we can get into it, is the defense for the second week in a row made some good adjustments and played a good second half. But offensively tonight, it was just not good, and they get a late touchdown drive to make the score look better. But at that point, the game was pretty much out of reach anyway. Didn't really get much, and, 3 field goal attempts, you get one of them. One of them is a 61-yarder that's almost impossible anyway, but you get a field goal blocked. You finally hit a 27-yarder. Even that drive, it's like it's disappointing you didn't punch that in. Offensively, just a disaster, and the offense even gave them one of their touchdowns. Obviously the pick six by Shador Sanders that made it 14-0, and so just you and I were talking right before the press conference started that. If you would have said Nebraska would only have 334 yards and only 21 offensive points, you probably would have said Colorado's going to win this football game. Instead, they got blown out.
Yeah, and they allowed Dylan Raiola to get comfortable in this football game, and that's because they were successful running the football. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot. Yeah. You didn't really have to see him have to do more than what a 19-year-old is capable of, and again, Colorado just does not consistently get a pass rush in this football game. That's one of the more surprising aspects. I agree with you. Yeah. The defense played well enough for them to win tonight, but I thought they'd be able to get after Dylan Raiola a little bit. Last week against NDSU, it was tough to get a pass rush because they were getting the ball out so quick. Yeah. There were opportunities tonight, and they got pressure a few times, but they weren't able to sack him once.
Well, yeah, and the other thing was that last week you had that running threat from the quarterback of North Dakota State. You didn't really have that with Dylan Raiola, and he did have a nice run early in the game, but he is not a running quarterback, and you still couldn't get to him. And so, yes, 2 games in, that's definitely an issue with this defense, especially when we talk about all the pass rushers that this team added in the offseason. They're not getting home yet. And so, I do like what the defense has done overall, but, yes, you got to get a pass rush. And if you couldn't get it tonight, it's got to come at some point, but I agree with you. I thought they were going to get some tonight.
Speaking of pass rush, the other team had one, and that was a group that we knew Nebraska had improved through the portal. They were going to be pretty stout on the defensive line, and I was talking before the game that I think this is a great test to see how this new Colorado offensive line holds up against. That group failed that test today.
Yeah, well, if you want to look at the positive, Shador was sacked 7 times by Nebraska last year and only 5 this year, so they improved, right? No. I'm just kidding, but it was not good. I mean, they 5 sacks again. That's too high of a number. It's just way too high of a number. And he was hit other times as well. And they failed that test. This offensive line, it's hard to say 2 games in that they're dramatically better. And we thought that's what we were told. It was that this group is dramatically better. I mean, it's a bunch of dogs. It's a way better offensive line than last year. I think it's better, but it's not dramatically better at this point, and I think that's a problem. And they better fix it. And this is gonna be a long season if this is how it's gonna look.
Stating the obvious here, there is way too much talent on the offensive side of the ball for them to score 10 points. And I know this was a very difficult atmosphere to come into, but again, just way too much talent on that side of the ball. And one of those guys, Dallin Hayden. When he gets the football, he makes plays. I think he needs to be featured more in this offense going forward.
Yeah, and he had a 17-yard run that accounted for I think more than half of his yards. But that's why you feed those guys, because they might get 2, 3, 4, but then they pop off 17 yards. That's how guys get 100 yards rushing, is they'll pop off a big run here and there. Dallin Hayden, I think, is a guy, yes, I want to see him 15, 18 carries. Let him get in a rhythm and pop off a big run like that. And so I think that if you give him 15 carries, I bet he finishes with 85, 90 yards rushing.
They failed on 2 fourth and short attempts, both were Charlie Offerall runs. They're just, again, not getting the push there. And also, I don't know if Charlie Offerall is the best option in those situations.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, last week Coach Prime mentioned, I like Dallin Hayden first off, but he has not gotten him either. Last week it was 2 in a row. But he mentioned, Coach Prime mentioned last week, he was trying to get Micah Welch into the game late because of how hard he runs. isn't that a hard running situation? Let's see Micah Welch in that situation, 4th and 1, 3rd and 1. If he's that hard of a runner, we've seen it a little bit in practice. Let's see Micah Welch. Let's see how hard of a runner he is, because it seems like if that's his style, that's a tailor-made situation for him.
Shador Sanders with an uncharacteristic pick six. I don't know if Draylon Miller didn't run the right route or what happened there. There seemed to be a lack of communication on that play. After the game, Shador Sanders has said it was a rookie mistake. I don't know if he doesn't, like we were talking about, he doesn't throw guys under the bus, but you don't see Shador Sanders make decisions like that, really.
You don't, but he is human as well, and so it was hard to tell. Like you and I were talking, like I thought he was saying it was a rookie mistake for him. You thought maybe he was talking about Draylon Miller, but either way, they were not on the same page, and maybe part of the mistake was trusting your true freshman receiver in that situation on the 2-yard line, but.
That's where you call a flea flicker, like we saw back in Boulder in 2019.
Right, that's where. Right, that takes some guts, but and that's another situation where if you have much of a running game, you run the ball and try to get out of that situation in a lot of cases, and so again, we're going to keep harping on it probably until unless it doesn't get fixed. But the lack of a running game is really hampering this offense in situations like that. In the 3rd and short, the 4th and short, there's a lot of situations where they better find a running game. It's going to be tough this year.
Like the opener, they lost a starting safety early. In the opener, Cameron Craig goes down. He comes back this week, but then this week early on, Shai Sanders goes down with, we're told by Coach Prime, a forearm injury. Don't know the extent of it. Chidozie Wankwo went down as well, but it sounded like from Coach Prime's comments, it sounds like he will be back probably next week.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. He made a tackle, and you could tell right away it looked like a shoulder. He ran off. He had to run the entire side of the field, and it looked like he was dragging his arm. So I thought it was something like that. But he said he'd be back. But with Shiloh, he said at halftime on TV, broken forearm, but he sort of backed off that. He didn't say broken after the game, so we'll see with Shiloh, but hopefully it's not too long. Cam Craig said that really affected them not having him in there, but I will say, Savion Riley stepped up last week for Craig. I thought Carter Stoutmeyer had a pretty good game at safety in Shai Sanders' place.
Coach Prime said that Shador Sanders got banged up a little bit on that play where there was targeting against him. He kind of downplayed a little bit when Shador came in the post-game press conference. But the bottom line is this. They can't keep going through another season like last year where he's continually getting hit. And it's part of the game at times. Even Raiola, as comfortable as he was at times, he got hit a couple times, but it's happening again too often.
Yeah, it is. And Raiola didn't get hit nearly as much as Shador tonight, and I don't think he was sacked once. And so I've got to think that if you're Shador Sanders, you're looking on the other side sometimes in these things saying, man, can I go through a game like that where I don't get hit? And, last week obviously it was only 1 sack, but he got hit several times. Last year it was 3 sacks at least in every game. Shador could use a game where he doesn't get hit, or at least, take some light hits or things like that. But I think if you wanted to wish for anything for anybody on this team, it's for Shador Sanders to go through one game where he doesn't have to take a big hit like that.
A clunky game at times. Yeah. Both teams had over 100 yards in penalty yardage against them. I don't know. This is a place that I respect a whole lot. The fans here are as passionate as you're going to find nationally. Now that this game is over and I'm going to be driving out of Lincoln tomorrow, I'm kind of happy they're not on the schedule again for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I am too. This is my 3rd time covering a game here. I don't like Nebraska. I grew up in Colorado, so you don't have any love for Nebraska. But 3 times here, you got to respect it. I mean, it's an incredible atmosphere. And I will say, I do think that they were more desperate for this win than Colorado, because I think that if they lose this one at home, that's a tough thing for them to swallow for their fans, things like that. And CU fans don't care about that. I realize that, but I think this was they were more desperate for this one than maybe Colorado was. It wasn't pretty, but this is a game that a lot of people didn't expect them to win anyway. I mean, everybody in game day picked them to lose this game, so they can recover from this. But there's a lot of things to fix.
Yeah.
And yes, I can't wait to drive out of here tomorrow either.
Fans are going to overreact, but that's their job to do. Fan is short for fanatic. Yeah. It's hard not to react after this football game because issues that have been were plaguing this team last year during their losing streak are showing up again. I am, though, this is a new group, and I am anxious to see how they handle that adversity. The Colorado State game was going to be a rivalry game this year, even if CU fans don't want to accept that just because of the way last year's game played out. Colorado has to bounce back this week and make a statement up in Fort Collins.
Yeah, and this is where a lot of people talk about this schedule. It's not an easy one. You look around the country, and a lot of Power 5 teams are playing, quote unquote, those easy games, right? Those layups, and Colorado doesn't have one, and now they're 1-1, and now they got to go into another buzzsaw of a place next week, and so
I wouldn't call CSU a buzzsaw,
like, but they're going to go in a place they haven't been in a long time, a rivalry stadium. I do believe there's going to be a ton of Buff fans there. So you're right. Thank you for correcting me. It's not a buzzsaw, but it's still a road environment, a place for a rival that wants to beat you pretty bad. But, yes, the big thing is how does this group respond? The offensive line, they're under fire. They better respond next week.
Have you gotten a runza while you've been in Nebraska?
I have not, and I will not.
I had it for the second time in my life. It's not horrible, but that's probably it for me. 2 runzas. I'm good. It's just that doesn't have any taste to it.
Yeah. Well, then you've had mine, so I'm good then.
All right, we'll be back in Colorado next week as Colorado gets ready to take on their in-state rival CSU.